Good evening and welcome to another MTV Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, and of course, Chris Diali. Chris, good evening. Why are you wearing the same color like me, Chris?
Good evening, viewers, and it's a pleasure to be back here with you. And I don't know about this color coordination that Byron is talking about, but nonetheless, we will work with it and see what happens.
Okay. Chris, a lot's happening this week. We have budget, a number of things, but I want to start with gravel and concrete. There's a story that's been in the local newspaper and in the press. It's a news allegation, I call it, because allegations of corruption. It's alleged that a member of staff was able to take out as much as $20,000 company funds to undergo studies in the UK without approval from the board. I don't know how this can happen, but anyway, and this has been generating some concern. I understand that the board would have met earlier this week on Monday to address the matter, address the situation. There's a lot of allegations, but one thing comes to mind, Chris, is that as a statutory body, it's a board, and gravel and concrete is involved in aggregate production, for construction and other purposes. But you have the chairman of the board is a senior diplomat residing in Ottawa, Canada. For me, not just clumsy, but from a business point of view, management point of view, it doesn't make sense to me, Chris, at all. I don't see how it's possible.
The allegation of the money and what is being used for unauthorized speaks to systems and controls inside of the organization, which seems to be weak if the person could have done that, unless there has been collusion of a certain amount happening and they were able to do it. So it of course raises concern about the rigidity of the systems and the possibility that you could embezzle money to do things like that if it's not approved properly by the board and so on, and the systems involved. So that's the first thing. Second issue about a chairman managing remotely from Ottawa, Canada is not the ideal situation. No. Most chairmans of board have responsibilities of fiduciary and governance. Yeah. And they need to ensure that the board and the members of the board are kept within a certain amount of remit of what is happening in the organization, and to manage that in a sense. I mean, you're not an executive chairman, but at the same time, the chairman needs to be given proper reports. They need to interrogate those reports to ensure things are running as they ought to. Yeah. Doing it by Zoom or by whatever platform doesn't convey the same set of authority as if you were there in person. So it may work to some degree, but it has its
And my information
downsides.
is not the only statutory organization. It also occurs with the planning authority, that you have a chairman who resides somewhere else, another state. I think critical operations of this nature, or bodies of this nature, require, you can have a director, I think, that is overseas, but the chair, person who's leading the organization here, I think requires
Well, I think we have more than one. I mean, the Tourism Authority too has a chairman that resides outside and so on. And yes, this government, when they did the thing for people to join boards and chairmen, they had put out a thing about qualifications and accredited directors that did training and so on, which was a good thing.
Accredited directors, excellent. They get high points for that, high marks for that, because I think this is a very, very important
I think the issue here is your ability to manage from afar.
And not as just as a chairman, Chris. Yeah, Chris, I want to move right away. This is regional, but the U.S.-Venezuela matter, I mean, it's up again, and it's a lot of discussion in the U.S. in particular, particularly on that strike that happened, I think, on the 2nd of September earlier this year, where there was a second strike. In other words, after the U.S. Destroyed that boat, quote unquote, narco trafficking boat, whatever it was. But there were survivors, at least 2 or 3 survivors hanging onto the boat, and there was a second strike to take them out, actually. So that has become a major issue because it's considered a war crime, because the law of armed conflicts, what it says is that a survivor of a ship attack is no longer a combatant. So you can't kill them. You have to take them aboard, you have to rescue them and secure them. You don't kill them deliberately. So this is an issue, a big issue in the United States, and it seems that the U.S., well, the opposition, the Democrats, they seem to be going after what's his name, Hegseth, who is the head of the Department of War, of course, the War Secretary. So it's interesting what's happening there. Of course, the U.S. continue its military buildup. And the last word we had was from the president was like strike inside Venezuela to begin soon.
Yeah, well, it is so concerning for us in the region what is happening with this Venezuela, this build-up with armaments and things by the U.S. with the intention, obviously, to do something with Venezuela. We don't know what it is, if it's regime change, if it's, going in and attacking the Venezuelans on different levels. And, of course, the intention, I believe, of all of that is the U.S. is economic.
Economics.
They want control of the oil.
And
remember,
minerals.
we have Suriname and Guyana as well. If they could get control of that entire block, they control more than, because Venezuela have the largest oil deposits in the world.
300 plus billion barrels.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it is economic, and they don't give. They come up with this excuse of narco.
It's a joke,
terrorism and so on. But when you see the build-up and what is happening with the ships and the warships, I think the chairman of the defense war machinery met with soldiers this week. And so on. They set up a radar in Tobago, Trinidad.
So, but you talk about radar, Chris. So we no longer have to give a response because it's somewhere else.
Well, I mean, the question is, what is the radar for? It's particularly for military purposes.
It is for military purposes.
But the consequences for us is the issue. I mean, the Caribbean seas and the waters in the Caribbean are highly trafficked in terms of ships bringing cargo to and from, Europe, Brazil, and across from China and so on. So, through the Panama Canal. So when you start this war thing in the region, the obvious things is that ships are going to get nervous, transport of sea freight is going to go up, our cost for sea freight is going to escalate because some people are predicting that it's going to increase by 70-80%. So it's going to affect us in terms of cost of goods coming to our islands and our region.
When we talk about the budget, I hope that was taken into consideration because it's a risk factor. But Chris, when I talk about the consequences, I was talking about particularly Grenada in view of we not permitting the U.S. to set up a radar system in points.
Well, we don't know if it will have consequences. If Tobago set up,
but we didn't. We denied them. We didn't
say anything.
But we didn't give them.
We didn't give them a year or nay.
Right.
So
how are they going to interpret this?
We don't know. And that is left to be seen.
With Trump, you didn't give us, but we're going to have some
at the end of the day,
consequences.
whether they put things on Grenada, but Grenada is going to feel the effects if sea freight rises.
That's right.
Tourism is going to be at risk. You ain't going to fly into American Airlines, and British Airways won't fly into the region with fighter jets in the air doing the thing. They're blocking radars and doing all this kind of thing. So it becomes a safety issue as well.
Of course.
So our tourism product is going to feel the effects. Cruise ships are going to wonder whether they need to come so fast out. So there are multiple implications, and I don't think.
And Chris, CARICOM, nothing.
Well, we can't do anything.
No, well, not even a word. We can't even come together and speak in a common tongue.
Even though we say we're not for it.
But at least let's speak as one. Let's speak as a region.
We can't speak as one when Trinidad take the position.
Exactly, Trinidad, Guyana. So Chris, budgets, not budgets. Sorry, budgets on my mind. Elections results, Chris. We had two. Since we met Wednesday, we had two election results. And Vincent, let's check on that first. And Vincent and the Grenadines, Gonzalez losing badly, only being able to retain his party, his seat singularly, and the opposition, Dr. Friday, being able to capture 14 of the 15 seats. But what's interesting, Chris, something I noticed is that that 13 of the 15 seats, 14 were represented by men and one woman. So in the government now, what we have in terms of winning the seats, we had 13 men, one woman. And even I looked at the cabinet that was set up today, Chris, yesterday, is that of a cabinet of 17 persons, you have 3 women and 14 men. I think there's an imbalance there. There's a lack of, in other words, the representation there of women is totally, completely inadequate, Chris.
Well,
that's the direction I'm going.
Obviously, St. Vincent have work to do.
A lot.
In terms of getting the women more involved in politics. And that is an indictment on the political parties.
Oh, yeah.
And what is happening there, the dominance of the male over the female. So I think...
But they had a chance to fix that in setting up the cabinet.
Well, you know? With Ralph at the helm, I don't know what chances they would have had.
Oh.
Right, so... well, what is interesting is both St. Lucia and St. Vincent came up with 14-1 results.
Yes.
Right, the opposition in St. Lucia lost badly to the incumbent, 14 seats to 1. And similarly, Mr. Gonzalez as the...
We had 2 independents in St. Lucia.
Yeah.
Winning, yeah.
But the situation here is that I think the overall feeling you're getting from the electorate is that Gonzalez have been there for 25 years, 24, 25 years, and been a parliamentarian 10 years before that in opposition, so 30-something years.
Yeah.
And the issue is, I think there's a tiredness of his philosophy and his rhetoric and what he says and doesn't say. And people just wanted to get a change and to move away from that, as well as the landslide victory is also an indication that, you know, the electorate is impatient with certain things that is happening, and they're willing to make a complete change around and get brand new faces, brand new people to come in. The other thing with the St. Vincent thing, there are very few youths, young people in the government. Yeah, there's a lot of elderly, experienced individuals.
Yes,
not a bad thing, but you need a youth.
Greater balance. Because the point you're making there is that that you must know when to leave.
Yeah.
It's like have a dignified departure.
Correct.
You know, we're not seeing that, but we had examples of this in Grenada also, Chris. You know, so we see
when
this.
you look at Gonzalez and you look at his political career, it mimics and it mirrors closely Keith Mitchell's.
Yeah, when power stays too long, corruption often follows. You know, you need to know when to leave. You know, it's like, but Chris, the other thing was external influence. Yeah, is, you know, St. Vincent has been aligned. Well, they recognized Taiwan. Okay, so my info, what we're hearing is that there's been a lot of Chinese money financing the election and so forth, because the Chinese have, of course, an interest in wanting to go another way. So you have that influence, and the other influence you have, geopolitical, you could call it, but to what extent the U.S. through its covert operations would have been influencing that kind of change in St. Vincent, given the fact that they felt that the St. Vincent regime, Gonzalez, was too left of center. The same line so we have this kind of change. So we see Trinidad going that way, Jamaica is in that way, that is right of center. Trinidad, Guyana, Jamaica, and now St. Vincent. So you see where it's going. St. Lucia Labour maintained that position. So it's interesting to see what happens. Speculation is that they will be after Barbados next.
Well,
to see a change.
We shall see. Mia is, I don't know if Mia is left or right or center.
Yes, right or center.
Mia is Mia.
Yeah, she
so
yes,
at the end of the day, it's just what happens, you know. So, but the political changes in the region are very interesting in terms of the landslide victories.
Yeah. Chris, one of the things I want to touch on too is that I mean, the PM recently was in North Africa. He was attending what is called the 2025 Med Days International Forum, and this was in Morocco. And he attended, I saw this, the plenary session, and it was called Africa Atlantic Cooperation, Building an Integrated and Strategic Space. And in there he underscored that the Caribbean historic lack of infrastructure linking it to Africa has long limited trade, connectivity, and cultural exchanges. We agree on that, you know, but I'm saying, Chris, notwithstanding this, we have a problem here. What we trying to, in my view, what we trying to draw with Africa, we should be first making it work here. You know, that integration, that trade, that intra-regional trade. Only today we learned, for example, Caribbean Airlines, Airlines, how it's called, have reduced. You know, they cutting back on their routes. You know, we don't have, in terms of our trading, we don't have adequate vessels or boats, you know, so I understand the African link, but it's important that I want to hear more pronouncement, more action on what we can do, these low-hanging fruits, what we can do among ourselves.
Well, Chris. I mean, Sir Ronald Saunders in his speech recently his lecture highlighted the issue.
Yeah.
I thought very well. He said, you know, for years we talk about Guyana as a food basket of the region.
Yeah.
Guyana produces a lot of agricultural products. Supply Trinidad a lot of things like pineapples and other stuff.
Yeah.
And we can't get Guyana goods to move much beyond Trinidad and up the islands.
Yeah.
And at an affordable cost. And the real reason is transport.
Yeah.
Lack of transport, whether it's air or sea, that can ply these routes, financially making it positive for the shippers to get cargo to move from one end to the next.
Yeah.
And you know, it is disappointing after CARICOM have been around for so long that we can't even solve the transportation problem between us and the trade issue between us. And here we're looking to go to Africa, fine with that.
Yeah.
Fine with moving to Central and South America and getting new partners because of what's going on with the U.S. with aid and all of that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, do we expect trade to really develop? We may get services, financial services, culture and exchange and so on, which is a good thing. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if we want to conduct trading in goods, the issue is, can we really do it if we don't have transport, proper adequate transport? Africa is along the other side of the world. So anyway, I think we have, as you say, opportunity within the region that we have not exploited. And we need to find a way to do it, and hopefully we could get that done from a CARICOM level or better.
Chris, the big thing, of course, is the budget. I leave it for last, Chris. Budget 2026, and I know you've been, it's a deficit budget. Everybody's saying that, of course, but there's a... But what's your take, Chris, on this? I know you've been paying some attention to it. What stands out for you there in this particular budget,
well,
Chris?
I think the budget has had some really positive things, so I want to start with that.
Yeah.
The unemployment rate of getting it down to 7.5% overall is a good thing. Even among youth unemployment, it significantly dropped as well, 20-something percent, there about at 27 basis points.
Yeah.
The fact that we expect to have a GDP ending the year between 4.4 and 6.2% is excellent growth in terms of the sectors that's driving that. You know, the government didn't announce any changes in the fiscal tax regime in terms of personal income tax, corporation tax. So that's good for the private sector.
Yes.
In terms that it gives us predictability. So we can plan ahead without seeing any of these major changes. CBI performance, we've been told, has been better than budgeted. They had budgeted 140 million. They said at the end of the third quarter they had already met their budget, so they intend to surpass it by 10 million. That helps government in terms of its coffers and what's going on there. And I think on the digital side, the most important thing for me was the electronic embarkation and departure cards that the government intend to implement in 2026, which I think Grenada seems to be the last one doing it, but it's such a convenient thing when you're traveling, when you do these things online, and you could, you know, have the little wait time and you move through quickly. So that's a good thing. I think though there are challenges, and the major challenges, of course, is a deficit budget again. The government says they could finance the deficit through drawdowns on the reserves.
Reserves,
257 million, and the rest they will get from local institutions in terms of loans and other instruments. There was very little said about the $5 million bond that they issued recently and what they plan to do with the funds. The government did defer on payment of the bonds that was due earlier on this year, and they deferred it and they started paying in November. So it sends a little waves in the economy in terms of thinking about the ability for cash flow and management of the cash flow. The major sectors, of course, is going to be construction going forward for 2026, and there are a number of projects that have been cited and what they want to do in 2026. The drawback here, of course, is implementation and the implementation rate. Very little or nothing was said about that. But I think they have recognized that there is a problem, and we still have not addressed the elephant in the room, which is two things in my view. Capacity, both human resource and from an equipment point of view to increase the implementation rate. Very little have been said about that and how we plan to deal with it. And if you want to spend $370 million in capital projects for 2026, you have to have the personnel on the ground and equipment on the ground to get the implementation of that. We have forever put out capital budgets and we never meet it. because we just don't have the capacity to do what we have to do.
And it happens year after year after year.
Mm-hmm. I think, so those are some of the concerns in brief. That a lot was said about the health sector and health sector reform and what is happening there. I am not a fan of Polaris, as I've said publicly, because I think there's so much things in health that we need to check. I don't know if a project Polaris is going to fix them and what is going to happen there. And there's a lot more discussion I think needs to happen around Project Polaris to make it feel that is going to happen. In terms of education, they're spending a lot of money for youth education and programs under the youth, which is a good thing to get our youth involved. The renewable energy, there are a lot about solar for all, $1 million PV systems and solar heating for the person, the economically displaced. The Limley project is back on. Again, geothermal, they got a lot of money from the English. I'm not sure where we want to go with that and how that is going to help. But so those are some of the areas of concern. There is more. I don't think much has been said about agriculture.
Chris,
and 30 million again for agriculture, which is 40 million, which is very small. The major issue they talk about doing some farm roads, and hopefully.
The labor shortage? Because it's not enough, it's inadequate, it's not working. Although in the statement by the minister talk about in the past period, so much attention was placed on the agriculture infrastructure, but the primary physical infrastructure of agriculture farm roads, most are abandoned. I know farm roads, active farm roads with farmers who there's been no maintenance for the past 4 years. Chris, that's a fact. But Chris, just to say that having listened and having read some of it, I will think that I agree with you. There's a lot of positive things. Let's be open about it. But at the same time, the budget, we must understand, carries a number of risks. They're not trivial risks. Around the growth optimism, I think it's beyond what the IMF is projecting. The fiscal sustainability, the implementation capacity, to the point you made, Chris, I think that's crucial. And the transparency of the figures, we're not getting all the aggregate figures around it.
So there's a thing called initiatives, 206.7 billion.
What is that exactly? I was saying, for someone seeing this.
To be questioned.
So Chris, things are happening. And it's matched by, if it's matched by measurable and durable improvements in the well-being of all Grenadians. That must be key if things are happening. And so the question is, what is in there for the average person?
Well, if the minister talk about the free barrel thing, he talk about the gas thing.
Subsidies with the £20, I think that is good.
That's going to be maintained, but they didn't change the $350 they're taking.
We want a VAT-free day here too in Grenada, Chris.
I have mentioned that many times when I was sitting in the Senate. It has really good private sector business appeal. St. Kitts does 2 a year.
2 a year.
And other countries in the region does 1 and so on. But it is something that the government will not lose. When you say VAT-free, it look as though you're making no VAT on a day. That's what it's about. But the business activity leading up to VAT-free, the businesses will have to buy. Some people who wait for vehicles to purchase vehicles on VAT-free day. And there's a lot of business activity that takes place.
We have a guest. We have a very special guest this evening. You want to say something about the special guest, Chris?
Well, we have a very good friend of mine, Ann Peters. I won't pronounce the middle name. I'll leave that for other people to do. Ann is going to be joining us this evening to talk about her extensive experience in the health industry. Health is a big thing. It was a big thing in the budget. So we're going to get her thoughts on that and what she is doing as a private individual and trainer in the health sector that could push us forward as we go forward in that.
She's an ex-politician also.
She is.
So we can and we can touch on those things. Fine, Chris. Okay, viewers, we take a short break. We come back with our special guest, Ann Peters. We'll see you shortly.
Grenada! Get ready to celebrate culture, creativity, and community. It's the Kamahon Folk and Buy Local Festival happening on Friday, December 5th to Sunday, December 7th at the Sates Bus Terminal in St. Patrick. Friday, December 5th will be the opening night with prayers and worship. Then feel the rhythm ride with theater performances. On Saturday, December 6th, it's Market Day and cultural celebration in Sates. Come celebrate our our roots with Asaraka. Sunday, December 7th, it's the grand finale. Folk celebration. We close the festival with pure culture, the rich traditions that makes us who we are. So mark your calendars. Friday, December 5th to Sunday, December 7th. Sotez, Bus Terminal, Kamahan, Folk and Buy Local Festival. This event is brought to you by Ministry of Tourism, Creative Economy and Culture,
in partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development.
Welcome to Spice Isle Imaging Center, your one-stop shop for all your medical, laboratory, radiology, and pharmaceutical needs. Whether you need advanced imaging, accurate lab tests, or medications, we've got you covered, all in one convenient location. With our ISO-accredited laboratory, you can trust that your results meet the highest international standards of accuracy and reliability. From ultrasounds, x-rays, and mammograms to comprehensive laboratory services and an on-site pharmacy, we make healthcare easy and efficient. Our team of experts ensure you get the highest quality care, from diagnostics to treatment, all under one roof. Spice Isle Imaging Center, advanced care, accurate results, and everything you need to stay healthy right here at home. Spice Isle Imaging Center, your health, your convenience, your complete care.
Chris, go.
Welcome back, viewers. As we indicated earlier, we have a very special lady with us in studio this evening in the name of Miss Ann Peters. Has a Master's in Health and Strategic Communications and a BSc in Nursing Education, Associate Degree in Paralegal Studies. Ann has been a Deputy President of the Upper House of Parliament in the Senate. She served as Minister for Health in the Cabinet of Grenada in 2008 and 2013. She has been a president of the Pan American Health Organization, member of the Executive Committee. She's been an executive board member, chairperson of the Executive Board of Caribbean Public Health, and a number of other things in nursing, education, and health. So our friend is well founded as it comes to health. She has been the chairman of the board of directors of Labukan Training Center, which we're going to get into, and a training consultant at the center as well, and certified in TVET training and as an instructor. And welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be in the company of two honorable gentlemen.
Well, I know so much about Byron and the honorable part, but what I can say is, and I think, I don't think people are so aware of what you have been doing in Labukan, particularly in your training aspect in health. And I want to expose that and talk about that because we have a lot of things going on in health. In the budget, health was a big part of the budget, health and wellness. And you know, we have all kind of things with a new project Polaris. We have primary health as still being cited as a major focus of government. We have Mount Sinai doing a lot of work with the hospital. A lot of things happening for health. I think the government has recognized, rightfully so, that we are challenged with health and what is happening in health for many years and over many governments. So it's nothing new, And the idea is to try and give our people the best that we can. Hence, we want your insights and your experience. So tell us what is happening at your Labukan Training Center regarding health and what is happening there.
Okay, in a nutshell, we are a technical and vocational training center, which reflects a lot on TVET training. So for people who don't understand, TVET provides certification at the CARICOM level through CVQs and NVQs. When I founded the Labukan Training Center, I had two things in my mind. The fact that Urias was involved in the creative sector and my background is in health. So we have two centers, one at the GCNA complex that specifically focuses on the creative arts programs. And recently, about a year now, we've been able to identify the Alliance Française building in the villa. That is where we have now moved all of our allied health training programs. I specifically decided to look at the allied health training programs because oftentimes when people talk about healthcare, they see doctors and nurses, and the buck stops there. But it is critical to understand that a successful outcome of any medical procedure or line of treatment is not relying heavily only on doctors and nurses. There are several other allied health professionals that come into focus. And even if we look at it from the level of, let's say, the persons cleaning the hospital, these particular people must be trained properly because you cannot take somebody that has been cleaning a school last week and drop them in a hospital to clean a hospital. It's completely different.
Even orderlies, all of those.
Everybody has to be trained.
Ambulance people.
Right. So at this particular point, we focus on training healthcare assistants, which is what most people may call a nursing assistant, but I don't think the nurse needs an assistant. The healthcare assistant is trained for 1 year, and they are able to function in several capacities. So they can be in a hospital, they can be in the community, they can work in a doctor's office. Currently, we have 2 of the graduates who are now working in a dialysis unit at the hospital because it's a strategic approach to doing the training. You prepare them and then they can venture into anywhere. So it's like creating a pathway for their own development. We also train orderlies. I mean, back in the day when I was in hospital, the orderlies were trained. But somewhere along the line, we lost that. So now we train orderlies at the NVQ levels too. And we've trained over 40 orderlies since we started the program. We also do allied health geriatric care providers. We start our geriatric care providers again at level 2 to level 3. We are preparing to roll out a dental assistant program because again, you have people who work with the dentist, but they're not trained and certified. So we're trying to bring everybody up to certification level. 2 weeks ago, we started the first ever EMT training program, emergency medical technician. These are people trained to work specifically on ambulances. So this one is, I'm excited about that because we do not have really and truly an EMS service, which is an emergency medical service. When you get a call, an ambulance from hospital moves out. So when you train, you have an opportunity now to actually introduce the service and to alleviate the burden on hospital ambulances because emergency medical services are not reliant on hospital ambulances.
So you
because
can
remember,
have
it's the
private
first
sector
line.
involvement.
Yes. So this is a good opportunity for private sector people to become involved in looking at how you could collaborate with the government to make these things happen. There are a lot of times we feel that government alone could do everything. They can't. I don't care which government it is. It calls for that kind of partnership, public-private partnerships. And this is something I would want to advocate. So right at this point, we have trained over 300 plus allied health professionals since we started working in 2014. And I think we have the capacity to venture into several other areas. Like I said, we're going to do the EMT, we're going to do the dental technician, and there are several others because we deliver based on the standards that are available in country through the National Training Agency because that's who we are accredited via the National Training Agency.
Tell us about the the kind of equipment you have had to invest in order to bring yourself up to that NVQ, TVET standard training. That and just listening to you, I feel so positive that we're getting such a positive thing about health and what is happening on the allied health side.
Yeah.
And if we strengthen that, how that will then indirectly assist our primary healthcare facilities. So tell us about the kind of investment you have made with your equipment in that center in order to get it up to the standard it's at now.
I think Labukan has been blessed and lucky. I'll tell you why. Equipment for the health sector, training in the health sector is very, very expensive. One mannequin, a regular one, not a computerized one, will run you into the area of like about $1,600 US, and that's just a simple mannequin. A mannequin that you might be able to hook up on a computer runs in the vicinity of $30,000 US.
Whoa.
Every piece of equipment you buy is an expensive piece of equipment, whether it's a hospital bed, the trolleys, the instruments, because you must have what I call a makeshift hospital room. And I'll explain why that is important. So I have been blessed to have friends who believed in the vision of Labuka, and one sitting on my right. So whether it's to help us with getting some paint to paint the wall, or helping us source equipment from abroad and making sure we get proper donations and so on, we've been blessed. But it is a very expensive thing. In addition to that, as you train students, you have to remember every piece of supporting stuff you use, gloves, you can't reuse them. Gauze, you can't reuse them. IV line that you teaching them to put up, you can't reuse it. So it is an industry that utilizes a lot of stuff that you cannot recycle. So, but for the goodness of good friends, and I must also say that we were able to move the facility, went through the Ministry of Education. They recognized what we were doing and has been able to negotiate with government so that we now get a small subvention to assist us at least with paying the rental and some of the utility bills. So we appreciate that, and that has helped us significantly to expand our programs. So it is a collaboration between government and ourselves through a subvention. And of course, I work closely with the Ministry of Education because as TVET, that's where I fall, under education.
I didn't hear you say Ministry of Health yet, but we will come to that just now.
The Ministry of Health benefits from the program.
Yeah.
But I am under the auspices of the Ministry of Education as a TVET training center.
So let me take you on another line. We just hear a lot about the General Hospital. We have a lot of conversation about the General Hospital. We have Mount Sinai now doing an extensive review of process, procedures, and administrative aspects of it, and I think the minister announced that they're finished and now they're looking at the report to see what can be done. You were Minister of Health for many years. What is your take on our General Hospital in terms of its level of efficiency in delivering healthcare to our people?
That's $1 million question. The health sector is a complex, comprehensive sector that depends on two important factors: scientific knowledge and competency. And there's no success if the two are not like hand in glove. So you can have all the science in your head, but if you don't have the competence to deliver care, in other words, whether you make 50 robots can't care for people. Yes? I think on paper we have a good system. Where I see the deficiency is the serious levels of management that is required and how people are able to implement particular protocols and management procedures. And also to add that people get away with a lot of things because there is no accountability. But we do have a good crop of technical people who really, really have good intentions in terms of delivering care. And sometimes all it takes is the two bad apples to make the whole system crash. So I think one of the things that has to be done is that people must be held accountable for nonsense. People are getting away with too many things.
Yeah.
Right? So if we can find, I hope that, I know Mount Sinai was helping me put in protocols and so on. Because in most hospitals, when you go into the system, in the healthcare sector, the first thing you are given is the policy that document the policies, protocols, and procedures for that particular hospital. I think what has happened to us over the years, we've dropped the book. So if you come from Timbuktu, you do things Timbuktu way. If you come from, I don't know, wherever you come from, we have to kind of get that out of the way.
Set standards
precisely.
Accordingly.
Because another point I want to put on the table is that healthcare is linked heavily to culture. The culture of its people. So, and even with our young doctors, there are some things about the culture of our people that they themselves are recognizing they don't understand. For example, A lot of our people still rely on herbal medicines. A lot of our people still have superstitious beliefs around certain health conditions, right? And you have to understand the cultural context, because when you understand, you are better able to deliver a higher quality of care without making people feel that they are afraid to tell you something because you are going to ridicule them, right? So the person that comes, I use that as part of my cultural orientation. We do something called Grenadian anatomy with our students and Grenadian physiology. Let me explain. In the average person, your foot is anything from your hip to your L foot. So when an older person tells you that my foot hurting me, the critical thing to do is to ask them to show me where it hurts. Because as a scientific practitioner, you're thinking of the foot, but the person might be having pain in their hip or in the middle of the foot, leg or something like that, upper lower leg. Another thing, people still will tell you that ligaru suck them.
Yeah.
Yes? And some people would scoff. I don't. I simply say to them, listen to me. Any ligaru that's sucking you know in 2025, something wrong with that ligaru head. Because you have HIV, HTLV1, hepatitis A, B, C, and D, right? And just like a mosquito would put the bad blood in you and then pull out what he wants, when the ligaru suck you, that's what he's doing. So sweetheart, go by the doctor to see what ligaru leave in you. They come back afterwards and say, Miss Peters, thanks, I had some blood clot problems here and I had XYZ. But if you miss that, you are missing a critical part of caring for people.
So the logical follow-up question is, the person who's coming in from, let's say, Africa or anywhere overseas to come in to work in our health system should have an orientation.
I think you should have an orientation, and more specifically, a cultural orientation.
Cultural orientation.
Understanding the culture of our people.
That's critical.
Because we cover those things, but no, I am passionate about it because I see it every day. Remember, I teach students between the ages of 18, 35, 40.
Yeah.
And the thing sometimes that I hear them saying, I'm wondering, these things are still existing.
That's interesting. But I just want to, compliment you on your work, your commitment, particularly the sector you're in, health, and culture too, of course. And we can see the culture infused there in the health, and I like that. But I want to go to a very practical thing with our nurses, because nurses are critical to the system, yeah? What we have here, I've learned that we train between 60 to 100 nurses annually, yet many leave between 1 to 3 years. And it's a regional thing, but certainly it's heavy here. The salaries, I understand, is between $2,000 and $2,007 monthly. Is it a compensation issue? But the question I want to ask, what immediate policies would meaningfully improve nurses' retention in Grenada?
But I think any time you talk retention, you're looking at the terms and conditions of employment outside salary. Because a lot of people still want to work here.
They get a top up, $500, yeah, okay.
Where does a nurse go if that nurse had a traumatic event while on duty to talk to someone to get some psychological care? Where does a staff go that falls ill? There is no special place that staff could go to and be processed with some level of dignity. And that has been existing a long time. We have tried several times to get what we call the staff doctor who's going to look after that person. And if a staff falls ill, you don't have to go to the casualty and sit and wait. And these are things for administrators to articulate for. This is not a politician articulating. You are the people saddled with looking after the human resources of the country, inclusive of doctors and nurses. So I feel the onus is on a lot of these people placed in positions of management to lobby and advocate to improve the terms and conditions of the people working in the sector themselves. You hear the complaints all the time. The nurse had an injury to her eye, she has to go and stand up in the line and wait.
You were the Minister of Health. Did you implement any of those kind of policies?
You know, sometimes you have all the ideas, but in a time frame. Because when I left, there was a staff doctor. Dr. Dragon had identified the space.
Okay.
We were looking at recruiting and hiring the doctor for the thing. But we have a system in Grenada that when one government goes, we throw everything out and then everybody wants something new. So things just fall apart. But so, yes, there was a plan to do it.
Okay, great. The other thing, we had to look at our current health situation. More than 50% of adults here, and I know this, live with at least one non-communicable diseases. Diabetes prevalent, you know. We learning just last week about, Chris, we were talking about it, kidneys problems, men prostate, extremely high. We have a problem. So what's the fix? Because all you do, when we care, I mean, we're not dealing with a problem.
But there is no one fix to that virus.
So let's
it has to be a comprehensive approach.
So tell me, give me some mental health. I mean, alcohol. Talk to us.
For me, the buck starts at getting people to accept responsibility for their health. Doctors and nurses are not responsible for your health. They are responsible for intervening when there is a challenge. So we have to begin to appeal to people to do lifestyle changes. You know, and sometimes people get mad with me when I say that. What do we eat? What do we give our children? Your life, the scaffolding that you are putting down in a child for the first 7 years of his or her life is going to be a serious factor in determining their progression in life. But what do? We rely on synthetic foods. We're too lazy to cook and everything. And then when things get bad, we go to the health sector for miracles. So I think one of the things we have to start to do is some aggressive public education campaign programs to bring the concept of primary health care to ordinary people and to get them to understand that your health is your responsibility, not the government's responsibility. But when your health becomes challenged in one way or the other, then there is a system to intervene and ensure that we can either bring you to a better level of health, and there are some times when there is nothing that could be done, so we assist you to a comfortable
I'm glad you raised this, because when you look at the health budget, I think only 10% is going for primary health care. Very, very little, and that's where listening to you, that's where you need to put the resources to fix it. So there's a imbalance there, it seems to me.
Yeah, there has to be a balance, because, and for me, I think primary health care is critical. We talk it, and we talk it.
Yeah.
But primary health care has to be an aggressive approach. And changing people's lifestyle is not an easy thing. So you have to come up with creative ways of getting around it to get people to understand. I remember back in the day, and I don't want people to feel that I want to bring back the old, but I remember primary health care back in the day, particularly during the revolution. I was one of the people who went to Cuba to look at the primary health care system, along with Dr. Braveboy and Dr. George Clark. Two of them have died. I'm the only old soul that's still on the surface here. But primary health care is a community-focused approach.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we think that it saddles or it rests in the hand of the healthcare providers. It doesn't. It is a system you use to get regular people to take responsibility for what's happening in their community. So you can tell the environmental health officer when you have your meeting, the primary health care team, that there is a drain up the road that needs to be unclogged and mosquitoes are breeding in the drain. The environmental health officer may not know, but when you are in the community and you understand, it was a time when you got the fisherman, for example, in the particular community to provide fish for the school, the farmer to provide fruits and vegetables for the school feeding program. So we have to begin, sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we have to begin to look at these initiatives. They are not that new. When I was Minister for Health, I sent a particular doctor off to Dominica to look at the primary health care system, because that's the closest one in the region. And the joke around that is Dominica adopted Grenada's primary health care program, and they're doing a wonderful job with it. So we like to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And look, there's a big project now, Project Polaris, and I know Chris is listening to Chris, he's not too confident about the approach. But I want to ask you, it's expected to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. The question is, if we cannot fix basic care now, how will a new tertiary hospital transform outcomes?
A new tertiary hospital is necessary. I remember vividly reading the report from the Pan American Health Organization that where our hospitals sit is in a danger zone. And a proper hospital is something that we must seek to build for our Grenadian people. Whether it's Project Polaris, whatever, Qlaris, I'm not concerned.
But you're clear that infrastructure alone will not improve. You said that.
Precisely.
Without workforce expansion.
Precisely.
And
that's why I'm saying it's...
Where would the specialists come from? If we
Byron, we have so many specialists who are Grenadians outside.
We need to bring them back.
We need to engage people.
Telemedicine, you have to bring back people.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you need to engage people.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
We have had situations already here where doctors from outside were actually doing clinical rounds with doctors in the general hospital through, we call it telemedicine, but one call. I remember Dr. Barry McBarnett and Dr. Trevor Lane used to do rounds every day when they're doing cancer care.
But you talked about promoting and you saw the importance of primary health care. We were just talking about it. But the bulk of the money, the huge investment, is not going to go in primary health care. That's not where it's being directed at. It's directed somewhere else.
Okay, but I didn't get a chance to go into the detailing of how the money spread. But let us also remember. Hold on. Primary healthcare approaches may not cost you all that money, you know. It's common sense.
Yeah.
And how you utilize a system to get the benefits. Tertiary level care is expensive.
Very expensive.
Exactly.
So the money must be reflected for tertiary level care.
And I want to ask you, if NHI is not developed to the point where we could get an average, ordinary person in Grenada to access the healthcare at the tertiary level, we are making sense as well.
I agree with you.
NHI cannot not be discussed alongside what we do in there with Polaris.
Precisely. But you are in the Senate, and you remember when we were talking about NHI, government had done quite a lot of work on NHI. We had the report from Dr. Carl Theodore.
Can I ask both of you to hold a second there on the NHI, because I've been directed that we have to take a break. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back in a moment. Stay with us.
Christmas is here. Let's make it a magical time for everyone. Show your kids how to celebrate responsibly. Make smart choices about alcohol and ensure a safe holiday for all. A message from the National Parenting Program, Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs.
Megaforce Promotions, in proud collaboration with Ariza Credit Union and GBN, presents Grenada's biggest flea market at Monroe's Plainfield, Saturday 21st and Sunday 22nd December, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. Shop unbeatable deals on bed and curtain sets, appliances, household items, electrical and plumbing supplies, toys, Christmas decorations, clothing and shoes, perfumes and colognes, wines and drinks, and just about everything else. Plus a kids area, live entertainment, food and drink stalls. Want to be a vendor? Call 440-4646 to book your spot before they're all gone. Admission $5. 2 full days of deals and more deals. Shopping, fun and savings. Monroe's Plainfield Flea Market. Don't miss it.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here with Ann Peters, our guest. And before the break, we were talking about NHI and the importance. That's it, National Health Insurance. Yes? And we've been talking about it for several years. I think.
Many
when is it going to happen? What difference is going to make?
Well, I can't answer the question as to when it's going to happen.
What difference is going to make?
It makes a lot of difference. It means that there is some kind of mechanism where monies can go into a space to absorb costs for people who might be vulnerable and can't this and can't that. I mean, most countries that are moving along has some kind of health insurance. And I remember there was a lot of work done on health insurance. There was a report done by a Professor Carl Theodore from Jamaica. And it had gotten to the point that all that was needed to sit, and there were consultations with private sector, UNICEF or somebody was involved in that process. The document was laid before the parliament, and what had to happen was a decision on the basket of goods. In other words, what services were going to be infused into this national health insurance. Another government come and that's it. It gone in another again, doing what we do best, throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, one viewer, I tell you, they said, look, they're concerned. Let me tell you what their concern is. Will political will focus on improving services or mainly on major construction projects? They have concern about that.
My answer to that question is I am not inside the brain of the current politician, so I can't speak to political will.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, I want to go back on a little thing we spoke about, and it's mentioned in the budget as well, the nursing school. And you are allied health trainer,
right?
Dealing with nursing, orderlies, and so on and so forth. You know, again, taking a thing, we throwing the baby out to the water.
The bath water.
Yeah. We had a nursing school. Nursing school was very proactive. It was based on standards in the region. Our nurses were qualifying to those standards. And of course, some of them who have gone has been because of how good our nursing school was in the day.
Excuse me.
We have had nurses trained now. TAMCC was involved at one time. They disbanded it from TAMCC. The SGU is doing training of nurses now to degree level, but you're hearing issues with the program in terms of internships and what happens with nurses when they come out and how relevant it is. Where do you sit as it relates to nursing school? Do you believe it as the government is announcing to bring it back? And under what standards and
100%.
Yeah.
I think we are the only island right now in the OECS and the Caribbean that don't have our own nursing school. And most of the schools, for example, I know what goes on in St. Vincent. St. Vincent does the 3-year registered nurse program. The students, after they complete their 3 years, they go off to write the regional nursing body exam.
Right.
And they spend an additional year. I spend an additional year for those who want to do the BSN. And they partner with the University of the West Indies. That's one method. We have to recognize nursing is a competency-based profession, meaning you spend most of your time doing practical skills, right? So you get the scientific base, but the duration of your training is to be divided like this: 75% clinical practice, 25% academic. I taught in the School of Nursing for 12 years. We would run a nursing, we would have 3 classes of nurses at the same time, year 1, year 2, year 3. Back in the day, it was Laureate Clarkson, Jessica Japal, Gwendolyn Noel, your humble servant, right? And we ran those programs. It was specific, it was concise. The students spent a lot of time in the clinical areas and were rotated across hospitals in the country. So when you are finished with a 3-year program, you are ready because you are always working. Yes?
Yeah.
Other countries, that's what they do, competency based. So you can't have a set of academic skills in the back of your head, and when you go to check a blood pressure, you put in the cuff over the patient's shirt. Or you don't want to touch people because you no longer want to feel whether somebody's heart, if the area is dense. In nursing, they teach you to use your senses, not ultrasound alone. Exactly.
And you know, and listening to you on the culture side of things and how important that is to understand patient care and understand what the patient is saying to you based on your skill. You know, over the years, our system have been inundated with Cuban doctors because we can't get what we want and so on, so we get help from Cuba with doctors and nurses. And here is the question about the culture, because they're from a different culture to us. So the question here becomes, how good has been the service when we bring in foreign people into the system to understand what the people say?
Well, I mean, I can put a score on that. Remember, I'm not directly in the system. So you don't always have the pros and the cons. But I think anybody coming into the system should have an orientation in understanding the cultural context of health from a Grenadian
point of view.
And I've proven it. We did a workshop with some doctors not too long ago. And like I said, we did the anatomy and physiology, Grenadian anatomy and Grenadian physiology. And a lot of these guys, they were saying, but Lord, Miss Peters, we never understood this. We don't know what this is all about. And these are the people that you have to speak with. These are the people that you have to, you have to care for. So, for example, somebody is hypotensive. The young doctor might just say, well, you have to stop eating all that salt. But that is part of those people's lifestyle. You have to find another way to tell them, okay, let us look at how we could shift the sodium intake a little bit. So soak the ham or do eat the saltfish. So, these are all culturally relevant things.
I want to come back to you on NCDs, because NCDs is a plaguing issue we have. Amputations in Grenada are exceedingly high for diabetics and so on. And part of the issue you'll hear they complain about is the cost of getting relevant medication to deal with the particular, apart from the shifting and having responsibility for your health and shifting your diet and making changes. We drink a lot of alcohol, and diabetics, as you know, with alcohol. So yes, we have a lot of education to do, but do you think there is room for us to improve the cost of medication coming to especially vulnerable groups that are diabetic, to reduce things like amputations? I mean, foot care, and there's a
diabetic foot care.
Diabetic foot care.
There's a full CVQ on that, you know, the training
exactly.
to look after diabetic.
We don't have a place in the hospital that says you could come in once a week and do diabetic foot care to people who have foot care. Hence, amputations will happen and all of those things. Do you believe there is a need to adjust, seeing that NCDs is such a big issue we have, to give it more relevance and importance, cost as well?
I think we need to encourage more private sector people to get involved in the health sector at those levels you're talking about. I see nothing that should stop, let's say, a group of Grenadian people who say we want to come in to specifically focus on diabetic management at the community level. So we're going to put our money where our mouth is, right? And assist our own local people to look after some specific and basic things and make sure, like, we could have access to, like you say, drugs that are not too expensive. And how can we partner with that? Because I think a lot of times we just sit back and feel that the government is responsible for healthcare. All of us responsible for healthcare. And we must learn to be open enough to say, look, we need to develop some level of partnership. Because with partnership, you have buy-in and people get serious when they're inside the thing themselves. They don't see it as if it belongs to the state, but they have a say in that particular service delivery. So I think we have to encourage more of that.
You know, when I was chairman of marketing board, I used to always be amazed at this thing. We would bring in double the containers in brown sugar versus white, for example. And that is true the year. The only time white sugar will compete is Christmas time when we're making cake and other things. But we consume serious amount of sugar, whether it's through juice or through stew meat, whatever it is we're doing. And our people don't seem to think there's a need. And then again, we bring in all the imported cereals that are sugar-based and processed and so on. So I hear you on the education, and I think on the primary health, if we get real aggressive, and I support the idea. I don't think it's old time days.
No.
We need to go back to that.
It's important.
Primary health care is more community-oriented in my view.
Community-oriented.
It's not about having a doctor there 24/7 to deal with interventions when they happen.
That's community health. That's different from primary health.
You know, so primary health care cannot be divorced from community health.
No.
And you're not hearing the conversations around that.
So that's the kind of conversation we have to start stimulating and agitating for. Because you know what I notice about the lifestyle of our people? They do not listen to the signals that their bodies give to them. So rather than listening and responding to the signal, they will try a thing. They will go and drink some, don't get me wrong, I'm not putting herbal medicines have its place, but they want to go and do X. Somebody tell them, go and do Y, and no, they don't pay attention. So by the time, when, like they say locally, when things get bad, that's when they go to a health practitioner. And by the time they get to that health practitioner, the damage has been done. So all the health practitioner could do now is try to bring you to as comfortable a place of existence as he or she can do.
But do we have any policy failures here? In other words, as you mentioned, Chris, for the NCD explosion, what policy changes would you advocate to reverse that? I mean, one of the things we heard about is taxing sugary drinks, for example. I don't know, but what major policy change you think can impact positively on this explosion?
Well, I can't, right now, my brain can lock into any particular policy, but like you rightly said, I remember back in the day, and I remember one of my colleagues from out of Trinidad and Tobago, they were implementing the banning of all kinds of soft drinks in schools. Right, and encouraging students to use local fruit juices and fruit and that sort of thing.
We're not loaded with sugar.
Yeah, not loaded with sugar. So there are some, what I call low-hanging fruits that we can begin to pull, you know. But it calls for a discussion and a paradigm shift in terms of lifestyle.
You know, I'm a diabetic. I could say that publicly, and I have no issue saying that because I try to manage and live with the disease and change how you eat and what. But another major thing for us is exercise. And I heard our Prime Minister talking the other day about the need, we live a very sedentary lifestyle. We eat a lot of processed foods. So we need to start with that. Get up, walk, even though it's for 45 minutes. Byron is an ardent swimmer, so he swims. We don't do the exercise as our foreparents and our grandparents. They used to walk the land and go and till the soil. And so they got exercise naturally. We don't do that anymore. So the question I want to ask here is, how do we get all our people involved in that level of education as you're indicating? What it is to get up in the morning and go and walk for 10, 20 minutes and come back.
Chris, let me just say this. We run out of time, Chris. I was told about Patsy Davis. You know this person? She says she's pleased to see you being in this forum and articulating so well on the health sector. Chris, I want to ask her to give
Thank you, Patsy.
Give her the last word to you. Where is health going? What's the future? How do you see it?
Think, talk. My appeal tonight is to say to my fellow Grenadians, all of us, your health is your responsibility. We have to spend time investing in our own health. I often say, particularly to men too, give yourself a gift of an annual medical check on your birthday. It may not be the very day, but in that particular period and the month.
And you need to repeat that for me.
Give yourself a gift, you guys out there, and ensure that on your birthday, you or around your birthday, you get your annual medical check. We are still afraid of doing that. We don't want to find out. This is a stupid thing to do. Because in this day and age, a lot of things that were killing our foreparents yesteryear does not necessarily have to kill you anymore, as long as it is diagnosed early enough. There are treatments that can be done. You can change your lifestyle. Let us spend some time taking responsibility for our health. Our health is not the responsibility of the government.
That's the closing question, but the caller just said, why was the nursing school closed?
I don't know. 2 words. I was not in government at the time.
You don't know. Okay. Chris, your take on this session?
No, I think we need to get more interventions. I am so happy that we had Anne here tonight, because it's not about what she's doing in allied healthcare to get training and get us, but the conversation needs to move around we as individual leaders articulating the need for us to get involved and taking responsibility for our own health. And that issue about men doing an annual health check around their body or close to their body is so important for our men's health. Prostate cancer is, as you know, you identified it. The kidney issues among our young people and what is happening with excesses with alcohol and all of that. We need to have that conversation more and even bring it out to community. When we have community forums and community town halls, to me, part of the town hall meeting must be a conversation on health in the community. Must be. Cannot not be. We could talk politics and everything else, but health must be one of the focus things.
That's all the time we have, viewers, and pleasure. You'll come back, because we ain't touch on culture. We have
touch
to.
On culture?
Well, in a Labukan, the culture. Urias. Viewers, that's all the time we have. Let me thank MTV technical staff and others. We thank you. Viewers, we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.